Welcome to the No Mercy Business Coaching Podcast with Emily A. Woodruff, the podcast that walks you through managing your own small business through the highs and the lows. We'll talk with small business owners from all over the U.S. and share insights on how to help manage your business without the extra fluff and connect with other women just like you. Let's dive in.
It's really awkward because this is the first time I've done it. So I'm glad it's with you because I would be freaking out otherwise.
Here, I'll show you my face so you know how non-awkward it is.
You're very awkward. Okay. So thank you guys for joining the No Mercy Business Coaching and Consulting Podcast. My name is Emily Woodruff. I'm your host. And today I have Lacy Estelle joining us. She is from the Woven Agency. Hi, Lacy.
Hi.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with Woven?
So I started Woven from a need that I saw in the website development side of things for women. So originally I actually was a blogger and I still have my blog. And actually now I also have a podcast as well. And I started out talking about mental health. And when I started, I was bootstrapping. You know, I was doing everything myself. So I had to learn the back end of WordPress. I had to learn marketing using a Google search bar. And as I went along, I fell for a lot of really sleazy, salesy pitches from what I like to call bro marketers. And I think that's actually a fairly common term now. A lot of the Russell Brunson followers, people that swear they'll help you make $1 million and all this other stuff. And what really bothered me is how out of touch they were with the feminine side of business. Most of the women that I meet who are wanting to do any sort of business, they have bigger dreams in mind than just making money for themselves or for their families. A lot of times they want to make a difference in their communities or they want to give back in other ways. And I saw a lot of these male marketers, and nothing against, I'm not trying to be sexist or anything along those lines, but I just noticed that a lot of them were out of touch with the feminine aesthetic and the feminine mission of, you know, women who are in business. And so as I went along, I started to offer doing marketing consulting for female small business owners. And then it kind of evolved into mainly doing website development, because what I noticed a lot of them had were issues of their sites weren't set up on a good foundation. So I would go in and a lot of times I would say, okay, I can help you with this, this, and this. But sometimes then I'd get in their back end and I'd be like, wait, I can't actually do that yet for you because it's not going to work because we don't have a good foundation set up. So that's when I kind of niched into just doing website development and helping people to optimize their sites for conversions. And so that's how Woven was born. And Woven was named out of the idea that God is weaving together our journeys, and I integrate my faith directly with my business. So I wanted the idea to come across that, you know, your business doesn't have to be separate from your journey. A lot of times people relate to brands best by understanding their story. And so their story needs to come through in their site. And so that's what I do. And thank goodness I found you too, because you are so helpful to me with all the things that I'm not very good at. So.
Awesome. I love that. I love the story of the name of your business. I think it's really neat. And then it's, I like that it's not so in your face about your faith, but it's there. It's definitely there and you don't have to dig too far for it. But to the average person, they might not catch on to it right away. And I just love it. So thanks.
You're welcome.
So what are some things? I know I sent you some things ahead of time, but I'm going to kind of just jump around.
That's fine.
Okay. What are some stereotypes? Like what's a number one stereotype that you get for your line of work, and why don't you take it and break it down?
I think there's two. One, if I tell somebody that I'm a web developer, a lot of times they assume that I can do any sort of coding possible. And that's just not really true. I work mainly in WordPress, and there's actually 3 different code languages in WordPress. And to work on the development side of WordPress, you don't even have to know all of those code languages. So, where people imagine that I'm like the guy in a chair for like a superhero, and I'm doing all of the coding in the back end. I like to think of like Felicity with the arrow from the CW series, but it's really not like that as much as I wish it kind of was, because that sounds way cooler than what I actually do. The other stereotype,
mama boy.
right? The other stereotype I think that I get a lot is that anybody can do what I do. And people make a lot of big promises these days, and they don't deliver on them. Or, sometimes it's hard as a website developer to convey the value in having somebody that can make your site not just run fast and not just, have the name of your business, where you have a lot of overlap with people saying, oh, well, I can help you do this and I can help you convert. And it's not as simple as people will think that it is, because quality really does matter. And so I know that a lot of people will sometimes be like, oh, well, I hired this company from, out of the country, and they did this and this and this, and they only charged me this much, and I think it looks okay. But then they'll come to me because they're like, but it's not converting, or I'm not getting sales and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. And I'm like, well, and I mean this in the nicest way, is the people who are creating this stuff for you, they really have to be in touch with who your end customer is. It's not something that just anybody can do, even if they understand, even if they understand how, you design a website and things along those lines. It really matters that they actually understand your entire customer journey and the mission that you're trying to accomplish, because that's conveyed in your brand throughout absolutely everything you're doing, including your site. So I know that doesn't exactly like pin down specific stereotypes, but I think those are the two mentalities that when I meet with clients that I really have to try to break them away from, that this is not something that just anybody can do. And then it's also that I'm not a whiz. I can't do absolutely everything. I've had a lot of people ask me like, can you make my Google listing #1? And I'm like, I can do everything I can to help you get higher up on the Google list, but Google Juice is like still a mystery to most developers that I know. So it's not a complete mystery. We know for the most part what it likes, but there's no magic button that I know of that you don't know of that just magically pops you right up there at the top, except for pay-per-clicks, basically. So,
and I think a lot of people are misunderstood about that they can just pay somebody to say, hey, get me #1, instead of realizing that they have work that they have to do on their end too. It's not all just about how you code their website or how you create a certain ad. It all is connected. And if they pay you to do it, they still have to run their page. They still have to run their social media accounts. They still are an active partner. And I think that's the missing link that a lot of small business owners are missing out on.
yes. And I think me and you kind of been talking about this a little bit, about how a lot of people get into business thinking that, just having the knowledge of what they can do, say it's a skilled trades, for instance, say it's a plumber or contractor or something along those lines, somebody who totally is assuming that their business is not online, right? Because they work hands-on, they're doing something, out in, they're working one-on-one with people and they're working with their hands. But actually every business these days is online. Every single business is online. And it's so much more about making sure that you're connecting with your customers first. I mean, the first thing you do when you're like, oh, I need a plumber, you Google it. You Google it. And if you're having, it's one thing to have just your Google listing is like populating high, but it's a whole nother thing that if somebody gets to your website, they actually feel a connection with you and feel like, I can trust this person. I think this is the person we should use. And that actually is all stuff you need for them to have or experience way before they even get to writing their check. Because the fact that pricing for most people these days, as much as they will say it matters, it doesn't matter as long as the solution that you're giving them is they can trust you're going to be able to give it to them. And the only way for them to build that trust with you is word of mouth or other people's trusted resources like Google reviews, or a website that conveys your branding really, really well and relates to your ideal customer in a way that makes them say, yeah, I think I could buy from this person because I trust them.
Totally agree. So that kind of leads into my next question. What would you say is the biggest challenge that you're facing in your day-to-day work right now?
I really struggle with conveying my value to people, especially right now with the economy being so wonky and weird. Explaining to people why it's so important for them to have a great website, and a website that that will work for them it's become a little bit harder, because people are they're not willing to spend the money to get what they need. And hang on one second. You want a new shirt? Okay. Sorry. So that's been a difficult part of things. Just, I can get somebody on the phone, I can tell them all the things I can do for them. And a lot of times they're like, I don't think I need all of that. When really they do. They do need it, and they don't realize it, or they just don't see the value in it, because a lot of times they've already been doing things just fine. Either. So one of the primary clients that I have is like e-commerce clients who are wanting people to purchase things online. But at the same time, they seem to be doing just fine by, just selling on Facebook Marketplace, listing things piece by piece, or they seem to be doing okay just having a store shelf in their best friend's boutique. They start to feel like, well, I'll wait. I don't need to spend the extra money to have my site really doing things for me. But ultimately, that is the trick, or that is, I say trick, it's really not a trick, that's the key to having success, even in a really volatile market like we have right now. Because if your website is already doing a lot of the grunt work for you as far as getting in touch and talking to people, then it has ample value that you can't even fathom right now. And there's going to come a point where you're going to realize that is the case. So that is definitely the biggest challenge I'm facing right now, is just helping people to understand the value of what I'm doing for them, or what I can offer for them, and having them understand why it's a worthy expense. But
Sure.
otherwise that's it. Also juggling, because I have 4 kids, so trying to manage my time with all of my businesses has been a definite difficulty, and that's something that I think that's an ongoing challenge. So
Sure. Well, and just like that, having to deal with a kid who needs a shirt, we totally welcome that sort of thing here. I try to treat it like it's kind of a church. Like, your kid's going to scream in the middle of the sermon. They're going to throw their things on the floor. Life's going to happen. We welcome them because we welcome you, and we want other people to be comfortable in that same situation. So tell your kids hi. It's fine.
I will tell him hi for sure.
So what inspires you the most to keep doing what you're doing and keep at it every single day, despite the challenges that you're facing?
I know I talked briefly about how I got started in doing blogging and podcasting and everything else. Right now, what I've actually been doing is kind of just going back to my roots of why I started everything that I started in the first place. And that was originally to help women. I wanted to help women who had the mental struggle that I have had for years of just not feeling valuable and not understanding my worth, and not understanding my capabilities. So doing my podcast right now, that I do, that has absolutely nothing to do with business, but does have to do with like mental health, specifically ADHD. That's really been something that helps me to align myself with everything that I'm doing. So it's definitely, it gives me that feeling of, I know that I am made to help women in whatever capacity they come to me as, whether they come to me for my content that I originally started with, or whether they come to me for business. And then seeing that, come to life. I know I sent you a message this morning, kind of just telling you that somebody had reached out to me and told me that they really enjoyed what I'm talking about. And then, but I also
Yeah.
will hear from my clients, my business owner clients, who are like really, really happy with the things I can supply them, or they'll tell me, oh, I launched a membership portal for one of my clients 2 weeks ago, where that membership portal actually gave them some passive income that didn't require for them to create more products, but it also helped to curate a better relationship for their brand with their ideal customers, the customers that are wanting to spend money with them, that can see the value in a paying membership. And when we settled from all that, they were like, thank you so much, because this was so helpful, and it wasn't something they would have thought of. And for me, that really inspires me to keep going, and to know that I am actually helping people to impact the things that they want to do. And that client of mine has a zest for wanting to create some sort of manufacturing job in her community, because there's everywhere around her, the nearest place that has like steady work like that for people that want to punch in a 9-to-5 clock is hours away. So
Right.
that's her dream, and I think she's well on her way to that. But it's just these small things that they come back to me and they say thank you. And when you do that, you're kind of like, okay, this is worth worth canceling vacation for, or this is worth not getting to go to every little thing right now, just because of the change that it can help people to create.
That's great. It's so exciting. So on a related note, I guess you had mentioned that your podcast is about, it relates to mental health. And I know you personally, so I know some of your daily struggles, but how do you show up for yourself every single day to get the job done? And if you have any advice for our listeners on how to do that themselves.
I take medication. But genuinely, I will say, because, and me, and because like you said, we know each other personally. I'm still in the middle of like a bunch of medical findings, I guess, but I can say, like, showing up for myself looks different for me in every phase of my life. I have a really big, and I know you've seen it because you've been at my house, but I have a really big, like framed sign in my living room that says, the most important work you will ever do is within the walls of your home. And I feel like, and I'm not home right now, but for me, the best way for me to show up for myself or for my goals or for anything else is to always realign myself with that. Because I have to remember that I didn't get into doing these things because I wanted to work all the time, or because I wanted to feel like I was working for somebody else again. I got into it because I wanted to not only impact change for the women that I work with, but also for my own family, to be able to see that hard work pays off. But then also that that if you ever value your work more than you value, your family or the legacy that you're leaving behind, you miss the point. So I think for me, showing up for myself probably looks differently than it does for others, because for me, showing up for myself actually means showing up for my family and showing up for the goals that we have, and reminding myself that they're actually the most important thing. And so I do I ask myself, if I'm doing this now, what am I sacrificing in the long term? And it helps me, because sometimes I get bogged down with so many tasks that I'm like, this just feels never ending. And this wasn't what I wanted when I decided to work for myself. I didn't want to be working, 12-hour days instead of 8-hour days. But my mental health definitely requires that I work certain hours. So I have to make myself work during those hours when my mental health throughout the day is the best. I read my Bible. I strive to read my Bible every day before I work, because for me, that's like telling myself that I'm going to make sure I not put the cart before the horse, right? Because I want to be in alignment with God's plan for my life. And so I always try to read my Bible before I start my work for the day. That helps me keep that perspective. And then I also, I try to eat decent. And most recently, I've tried to start at least hitting 10,000 steps every day. I don't do it like, oh, I gotta go for a walk or anything along those lines. I just take note on my smartwatch when I've been sitting for a long period of time and I get up and I walk around. It helps me to stay focused. So the primary thing that I talk about on my podcast is mainly, like I said, ADHD, but with that also comes, anxiety. And in my case, I have PTSD as well. So doing all of those things combined, trying to eat decent, which does not always happen, but I try. And just trying to be aware of the things my body needs, and also reminding myself that if I put the cart before the horse, and if I'm throwing myself into work, it actually just creates more stress for me, because I know that's not my ultimate goal. So
That's great. I think we are about out of time here. Is there anything else that you would want to share with our listeners before we kind of tell them where to find you?
Kind of surprised me with that one. I talked your ear off, so I'm not so sure, but I will tell you this: if you came to Emily's podcast because you're wondering if you need more guidance on your business, Emily is invaluable. I get lucky because she's just like one of my best friends. So I get to get her guidance because I pester her and I bug the crap out of her and I make her deal with me. But ultimately, if you're a creative and you're thinking to yourself like, oh, I just want to do this and I want to do that, but like in your mind you're like, but I can't figure out how to get from point A to point B. Emily is that person for you. So I know that's just my shameless plug, because the fact that like I genuinely think that this is your calling, because of the fact you can fill in all of those gaps for somebody who has these really great ideas but just doesn't always know how to bring them to fruition. So I guess that's my last little tidbit to drop there, that if you listen to this podcast and you're thinking, okay, maybe I want to talk more to Emily, you do, because she's phenomenal and she really knows her stuff. So,
Well, thanks. I was hoping for something about your business, but that's fine too.
Well, you know me. So well, in my business, my main thing right now is I really just want to help in whatever capacity I can. So if you listening to this and you're thinking maybe I have ADHD, that's really where I would love to connect with you. And if your ADHD actually makes you think that maybe you want to start a business, I'll totally happily connect with you again on that aspect of helping you create a website and build a brand and all that stuff. But obviously I usually work closely alongside Emily for all that stuff too. So I guess you have that too, but ultimately, if they're listening to this, I would hope that they're thinking, yeah, maybe I need more business help. And that's not me, that's you. So,
Well, thank you. You mentioned earlier about having somebody message you today and tell you how much your podcast is really impacting them. And I think that this is a good shameless plug for me to mention the Girls in Business Facebook group. I think that would be a great place, because today we're talking about what wins you've had in your business in the last week. And I think that's super relevant. So if you're not part of that group, Lacey is also an administrator in it for me. It's just our networking group, a way to link arms with one another and kind of encourage each other throughout the week. Or if you have issues that you're facing in your business and you can't necessarily do it yourself, it's a way to network and find some other people who might have different skills than you, and to do it for free, and to potentially, work with one another and share our client lists and things along the, not share our client lists, but partner partner on things with our clients is what I'm trying to say. So if you get a chance, take a minute and check that out. Lacey, I think you should put that there. And then if you just want to tell everybody where they can connect with you online, that would be great.
Yeah, so if you are wanting to connect with me for my podcast, you can find that at anaddwoman.com. But then you can also find my blog, which is more geared about me and my parenting journey, and that's at lacyestelle.com, Lacey with no E, because I don't have an E in my name. And then if you're also needing to connect with me for website design or development, it's an unfinished because I'm a procrastinator, but I do have somewhat of a website up at thewovenagency.com. I'm usually just too busy doing everybody else's websites to finish my own. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and for all of your support thus far, and I'm sure in the future, and just for your friendship and for being here. So thank you guys for being here.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm gonna stop it here and I'll.
Thanks for listening to the No Mercy Business Coaching and Consulting Podcast with Emily A. Woodruff. We specialize in branding and design for women, by women.